Welcome, everyone. A sad day in our world for sure. But I thought it started off with perhaps a little bit of humor. I'm wearing, you'll see, an Oiler commemorative Stanley Cup jacket donated by the Roots fellas in 1990. And I don't think I've had it on since they gave it to us in 1990. But the reason I do have it on is no one liked freebies more than John Muckler, but also no one appreciated a team jacket more than John. And obviously he was so proud to be an Oiler in the NHL. And so I thought it was fitting to put this jacket on today. Really sad to hear the news. I mean, in life, we all know that all our days are coming, but John was such a big part of our lives. You've seen Wayne's quotes recently, and I certainly echo that. I really, and the Oilers were great for a lot of reasons, great players, great leader in Glenn Sather. But John Muckler and Teddy Green's contributions were as impressive and as important as the great players on the team. And I can attest to it. I lived it. There was never a day where we didn't go to the arena or we went to the arena where we knew that we didn't know leaving that we would be a better team. And John Muckler was a big part of that. So he embodied the game of hockey, and really disappointed to hear of his passing, but he's leaving a fantastic legacy for his family. Thank you.
Thanks, Kev. I'll jump in here too. I think the impact that John had on my career was enormous. Coming to the Edmonton Oilers in November of 1987 and to a new world, I felt from John very much like my father. Stern, forceful, disciplined, strict when you needed to be, but also very kind and very thoughtful and very warm when you needed it as well. And I think it's an interesting balance in trying to be an assistant coach, to have that kind of relationship with your players, to make sure that they find a way to get better every day and to improve. And then, of course, the triumph for him in his first year as the Oilers head coach, to take us all the way with Ronnie and Teddy and Glenn at the helm, was really an amazing journey. And the one thing I remember so distinctly about John, other than the fact Kevin is right on, nobody loved a freebie at any place more, was just what a hockey man he was. I mean, John's focus every day was on the game and on his players and how he could try to do something to push you to be a little bit better. And you notice that every day in practice. To me, you noticed it so prevalently in our preparation for a playoff series, breaking down the opponent, making sure we knew exactly what to expect and how to perform. And, I will remember fondly in 1990, especially, taking over that team and getting an opportunity to pursue his dream. I mean, winning 4 more as an assistant isn't any less, but winning it as a head coach, I know how much that meant to him. And he's a man that was all about the game of hockey, gave his life to it. And it's a sad day for all of us that he's passed on. Ronnie?
Yeah, I was pretty fortunate to, first of all, have coached with Muck and then worked for him as a general manager. He took me in as a goalie coach and into Ottawa. The insight the man had into hockey was absolutely unbelievable. He was fantastic to work for. We probably had a libation or two too many when we were coaching together, but that also was part of John's forte. The man could go until 4 and be up at 7, and you would never know, and sharp as a tack. Well, one of the things the boys alluded to is John's feel for the game and his feel for his players. And I'll never forget in the 89-90 year, getting called up to his room at about 2 o'clock in the morning. And I forget, I think we were in Toronto. And he said to me, he says, Ronnie, he says, I got to make one of the toughest decisions of my life. And I said, what can that be, John? And he said, I feel like I have to bench Yari Curry. And I went, what? He goes, he's not playing good. And to get him going and to get our team to understand, I think I have to bench him. And he didn't play him that game. And I'll never forget, Yari was so upset, but he came to John, and after the conversation was done, Yari left and was probably our best player the rest of the year. And that's one of the things I remember about Muck. He told me once, if you leave the rink today after practice and haven't learned something about your team, then you better go to the video and see something you might have missed, because every day is a learning day at the rink. And he was a fantastic guy to work for and an unbelievable guy to work with. Thanks.
Fantastic opening statements there, guys. We'll now open the floor for questions. Again, first question will go to Reed Wilkins, 630 Ched. Reed, go ahead.
Thanks, Sean. Hi, guys. Thanks for doing this. This one might be a little bit more geared to Craig and Kevin, because you were still playing with the Oilers in the late 80s. But I know from talking to a lot of athletes over the years, I've heard a lot. We changed coaches and my game went south for a month or two because I had to get used to the new coach. Your guys' new head coach was the guy, you'd had as the assistant for so long. So was it a transition when Muckler actually became the head coach, or did it just feel like, okay, there's just so much continuity and we know him so well? Just wondering how the dynamic changed when he actually became the head man, if at all.
Go ahead, Summer.
For me, having not been there as long as Kevin, I thought it was a pretty natural transition, especially given, it probably wouldn't have been fair for Glenn to make him the head coach after he just traded away Wayne Gretzky in 88, 89. And then for us to have lost the way we did in the playoffs against Wayne and the Kings that year, I think it was, such a natural right move for Muck to take the reins at the start of the 89-90 season. I think that's another, thing of Glenn's awareness of taking that burden on the year before after the trade and not putting Muck in a position to fail, but giving him the opportunity after we did fail for Muck to put his fingerprints all over the team. And, I think we probably all felt and had for years that, our coaching staff didn't have a huge hierarchy. Everyone knew Glenn was in charge, but everybody played such a significant role from, Teddy Green. It was equally, when he stood in the room and talked, he had your attention, he had your respect like Glenn would have. And Muck clearly, with his knowledge, with his intensity, with, as Ronnie was saying, his attention to try to do something every day to make you a better player, I just think it was natural. And I don't think John changed and had to be somebody different as the head coach. But I think as the year went along and those tough decisions had to be made, I think he showed and had the confidence in the group that he could make those calls and make those decisions. And he was at ease in charge of the team. Kev?
Yeah, and I would say one other thing. I think that most of everything what Glenn did ended up being brilliant, and it didn't come by chance. I would say that the players that had been with him, with John, that is, for a long time, might have played harder, and not because it was John over Glenn, but because we had so much respect for John and his contributions to the previous cups. Not unlike us as a whole trying to win without Wayne. I think we appreciated for where John was and wanted to do well for him. So I think it was an extra motivation, at least for me anyhow, because I really believe that John was, as I said earlier, every bit as important as Wayne was, as Mark was, as Yari was to the Oilers' successes.
Question, Mark Spector, Sportsnet. Go ahead, Mark.
Hey guys, tell me about from a technical aspect, like from outside the room, maybe we're dead wrong, but from outside the room, the young early Oilers were so much talent and they flowed and played and it was creative hockey. And then as the mid 80s came, technical attacks became a little different. And Bob Johnson came along and started to figure you guys out a tad, right? How important or what was it? Did he come along at the right time with his technical expertise right when the Oilers needed maybe a boost of that?
Yeah, maybe I'll touch on that one for your spec and let the other guys wade in. But absolutely, again, more so than anybody could believe. I think we were as technically advanced. I don't think it's a stretch to say even more than Bob Johnson, the Calgary Flames. I mean, Bob's go-to thing, Bob Johnson, no disrespect, was, he was, Inspector Gadget and had all these things. But I mean, that was the misunderstanding about the Oilers. We don't win all those championships without being a superbly technical team. We never talked about it much, and we didn't do it all the time in the regular season. A different era. If it was today, you'd have to do it all the time. In those days, you could get away with winning. I'm talking sort of mid 80s. You could get away with winning games without being as technical as we were sort of down the stretch in the playoffs. But, after 1983, we became a video trained and highly technical hockey team. We won championships because we had talent, but you don't win 4 cups in 5 years without having more than that. And I don't know if I can overemphasize that. And now, of course, I was a big believer in all that stuff. And, guys like Wayne, the creative stars, might have a different view on how we were coached, but I really believe we won because of the systems that were put in place by John Muckler and Teddy Green and supported by Slats.
Mark, I would add to that saying, my first go around in the Stanley Cup playoffs was 1988 coming in, and I knew how well we were prepared throughout the regular season. But to me, Muck in that playoff preparation just took it to another level. And I can't tell you how well prepared you felt as a player going into your opponent in a series because of the breakdowns that we had. And I know every coach had a part in that, but it was clear for the players, John, that was really his strength in building a game plan against our opponents so that we knew exactly what to expect. We knew exactly how to adjust. And that stood out in droves for me. And even going as far as the 2 Stanley Cup championships in Boston, the Boston Garden, the small rink. The Oilers at that point going into 88 had never won a regular season game. And our preparation of how we needed to play precisely to the type of forecheck, to the type of handling pressure, what we were going to do, positioning of the wingers was brilliant. And we're undefeated in the 2 Stanley Cup finals in that building. And that to me, especially as Kevin's smiling, is really stands out of that kind of attention to detail that allowed the coaches to be the ones to translate to us as players. So there was no surprises once playoff came.
It just to add to that, Simmer and Mark, it's like the quarterbacks in the NFL, they flip open their chart with the plays on their arm. And we as defensemen literally could go back in our own zone and read the situation. It's either A, B, or C. And it was as simple as that. And it worked, 90% of the time. We didn't have to do a ton of obviously we had to have some skill to execute, but they just simplified everything so that it took the stress of playing in the Garden away from us and neutralized them.
I'll throw in one more thing there too, boys. In 90, when Muck threw Peter Klima on the ice in triple overtime, I'll never forget one other thing he told me when I was coaching with him. He says, always make sure your worst player can be your best in any situation. He says, sometimes you got to make sure he doesn't feel like your best, but make sure he can be your best. And honest to God, when I watched Peter Klima come on the ice that night, I went, wow, here's the last lesson of all of them.
Hasn't played for 2 hours.
Yeah, I know. It was funny.
I would say someone, I forget who the player was, but someone once told me that when we did lose, it was generally Muckler the next morning telling us why we lost. The personalities between the coaches, like as a reporter, Slats was Slats, man, and he was intimidating. And John and Teddy were more fatherly, more friendly, somehow a little less edge. I don't know. What was it like from a player's point? Did those three personalities must have played off each other just right for you guys, or how did it work?
Go ahead, Simmer.
I think very much so. And again, Kevin would be able to, well, each guy has their own little view, from Ronnie as being an assistant with him, Kevin for so many years when you had to learn how to win. To me, it was, Glenn had the view from above in so many ways. Even when he was the head coach, it always felt like, he would crack the whip personally at you. He would attack you when he needed to. He'd go around the room. Whenever Glenn was doing a speech around the room, you never wanted to put your head down and look at the floor. Steve Smith knows that one too well. I always looked him right in the eyes and made sure that he knew that you were going to take whatever he had. But Muck, because of his personality, he had that gruff exterior at times, but then also when he talked to you, he could talk slowly, articulate exactly what he wanted out of you. And he could be hard on you. Like, hey, I remember, Kevin, you'll laugh at this, and Ronnie, you were probably telling him too, but Muck came to me one day when maybe I was thinking that I was a better hockey player than I was. And he came and said, Simmer, I noticed you're trying to carry the puck through the neutral zone quite a bit lately. And he goes, I know you think you're a good player and you can make some plays, but he goes, look at the guys you're playing with. And I said, oh, yeah, I've got some confidence right now with the puck. And he looked at me just deadpan straight face. He says, no. He says, I don't ever want to see you carrying the puck in the neutral zone. That'll be a rule from now on. Says you get the puck to those guys, get it to 11, get it to 9, and then follow it up. And it's like, in some ways, it was a crushing blow, but in so many ways, it exemplified, and I could see Ronnie's laughing there too. It exemplified, know your role and know what you do well. And he said it as, that's what I say about being a father figure. It's like your dad telling you what he has to tell you, but he knows it's going to hurt you, but he does it in a way that you go, oh, you know what, Dad, you're right. And John, to me, filled all those roles. And Ronnie, I'm sorry if I carried it a little bit too much at times during the.
Yeah, no, Muck was what he was, in my estimation, he never really expanded unless the point had to be made. And if the point had to be made, then, like you said, he would articulate why. And once it was done, you could either go by his method, or he was pretty strict on the limiting ice time if you didn't adhere to what the game plan was. And hey, as a coach, if you're fair and completely fair, that's all the players can ask for. And if they gave you back the fairness, that was Muck's whole thing.
Yeah, just to finish up on that question, Mark, for me, it was simple. And I tried to say that, but I didn't do it very well at the opening. There was never a day in my days playing for Muck that I went to the rink and I didn't leave without having the confidence to know that we figured out what might have went wrong, or that we didn't have the right game plan to win the next game. You would get up after you'd for a person like me, after a loss, I wouldn't sleep. I'd get up the next morning, wondering who's getting traded, who's this, what's that. and you'd go to the dressing room and you'd go through practice and you'd leave there going, we're going to be all right. And that's just because, you know, they had answers. They weren't just trying to skate us or, you know, using some of the tools that coaches have that don't give enough answers.